I apologize if you hear the machine, but I'm like, I want to get like 10 things done in one shot, because that's how I think. This is a quilt I'm working on. I did this in a block swap several years ago on my channel, and a lady said that she was having issues, so I decided to start working on the blocks, and she ended up figuring it out and sent me the blocks. So I ended up having 12 orange, very bright blocks. As you could see, I am Frankensteining that batting. I have a whole bunch of scraps, so I'm just kind of like scrapping it. It's in my quilt, so I'm not going to interface it. I'm just going to overlap it a little bit so it's overlapped. And so look how small this scrap is. Like, it's just... and I'm using it. Praise God. I was going to use this, but this is too much of a big, beautiful, big piece. I'm going to save it for something else. I just wanted to see if I could do this with a whole bunch of those scraps right there. So let's talk about my quilt. How does it measure up to other people's quilt? Angling there, I need to fix. So I need to bring this quilt up a little bit. You can see there is some stretching or fullness. It is not that bad, but it is full enough that I'm going to have to iron. And one way of working it is kind of warping this angle down. So somehow this block got stretched, or when I was showing everybody, look, I finished it, I stretched her. So I'm gonna iron that. But other than that, you can see that this is kind of like a little bit better. And I did square her up by how I put the border. But you can see that she's pretty even, but you can also see that she's full over there. Now, if I pull this fullness down, like this, you could see that she's angling in this direction a bit. I think I'm a pretty decent piecer, but I'm not a perfect piecer. A friend of mine, she does beautiful quilts, and one of her things that she talks about is while she pieces, she irons. I'm a little bit lazier than, I'm okay about ironing, but I think when I put the borders on, I wasn't ironing as I went, and that could be a cause of why she's warping a bit. Or I was showing her off, I may have stretched her, and that could be a big one. I have basted her, and you can see that she is really warping on me over here. Hopefully I could fix her. Yeah, I think I could fix it. But what I did is, you can see this line is pretty decently kind of straight. You can see that I need to iron right here. Roll the quilt just to here and tighten her. This row is decent. This row is horrible. And that's okay. When I get to this section, it's weird how she's doing that, because I really did work hard on her. It just happens. Okay, so let me iron this area. I allowed it to pleat over here so that when I ironed it, it wouldn't pleat inside this space. And my best solution, look how beautiful. It's steam and a hot iron. And I am using Minky, so she is kind of, I need to stretch her over here. Look how beautiful she looks though. Look how beautiful that back fabric is. Let me show you the Minky. I love this rose Minky. You can see she's bowing, and it could be because of this seam. So I may pull this. No, I'm just gonna leave it. I don't care. Ah. I don't know if you noticed that if there's any fullness, I try to put it inside, like right there. She's gonna be a beautiful quilt. See how here, I'm gonna move it, and then move it inside this area, the fullness right there. Because you saw it was puckering. She looks pretty good. You know how I'm a stickler about fullness, and I'm going to share you why. Some of you may not even think it matters, but look, this is why. If I should have been on top of it, but I got distracted. But you'll end up having pleats all over the place because of the fullness. Now this is my quilt, and I really don't care. So if it was a client's quilt, I would unstitch this, re-iron, and put the fullness inside here as much as I could. But once this is washed and she fluffs up and wrinkles real beautifully, it's adding to the wrinkling, I guess. But that's why I'm on top of my clients' quilts, making sure they're nice and flat. And if there is fullness, I work it, because I don't want them to see this when they get their quilt. And I'm using a janky strip to finish it off. And this way I don't have to waste more. And then I'm using this janky strip to get this end on. Look how beautiful. It works. You can see she has some issues, and it's okay. She's mine. That's horrible. I'm a Longarmer, and my quilt has issues. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spray starch her with spray, and I'm going to iron her with steam and see if I could get a lot of this off. I've already kind of rubbed her down, and you know, she's just not complying. You know, she's just not complying the way I want her to. So an iron and starch first. So my first defense is an iron with steam. When I have a quilt that kind of looks like this, starch really does help the quilt, and kind of re-wetting the heck out of her. While I re-wet her, I let the starch go into the fiber, and I'll rub it into the fiber, and I'll kind of like let the starch soak into the quilt and into the fiber of the quilt. Starch will tighten up this fiber that has stretched on me. I promise. I squared her up. I got her nice and pretty when I did this, but for some reason the fiber stretched, probably when I was showing her off or something. And just in that, I don't know if you could see, she's a little bit better. At least now she lays flatter. So I'm going to spray her, and I'm going to try to realign all those blocks that are kind of warped. But just in wetting the fabric, if you could see from the comparison of before. So I already worked her down, and now she's settled in. One of the factors that can be what's going on is I am using a whole bunch of different batting. Not different types of battings, but what I'm saying is I'm Frankensteining the batting, and that can affect how this is laying down. And you can see how much she straightened up just with water. So then I'm going to get the iron and steamer. So look at this angle, how much straighter she is, block to block. I need to straighten her over there, but she's doing great. I'm going to pull her down, work her down to where she lays nice and clean. The second line of my defense, it's this iron with steam. Like, you know, the fullness that was right here, it is completely gone. And I'm gonna iron the seam line. She looks a lot straighter, if you could tell. She's still bowing on the last block, but I need to steam and iron that area. How this looks like, it's a lot better. It's still a bit angled, but it's okay. You don't see any of that buckling of fullness. She's still kind of shrinking in because of the starch. I did iron the heck out of her, so she's nice and flat and pretty. It could have been, honestly, how I put the blocks on. And I'm moving like this up so that it could make a straighter line. In this angle, you can see how beautiful she is. So this is what the quilt looks like quilted. Is she beautiful?